And lastly tonight, we're hoping we might touch someone's conscience. We need your help over a violent attack on a former model, Karen Young. It happened on a Sunday afternoon 2 months ago at her office, which is an estate agent, in Beaconsfield in Buckinghamshire. The motive seems to have been clear: to steal 2 diamond rings, one of them worth over £250,000. But the robbery was so nasty, so violent, that we're hoping our reconstruction will prompt a call from someone who knows the attackers. Karen Young has had a glamorous life. As a fashion model in the 60s, she displayed the expensive rings she'd been given by friends.
On the Saturday before the incident, 2 girls came into my office and pretending that they were interested in purchasing property.
Yes, a very pretty house. Yes, very soon. Bye. Yes, of course. Bye.
How much would it cost to buy a flat around here?
Did you have one in mind?
Yeah, a cheap one.
Just a flat.
Well, we don't handle anything under 38,000, which would provide one with a 1-bedroom flat.
How much would that cost me?
I've said 38,000 if you're lucky.
No, she means how much?
How much would it cost me?
Like to borrow?
I've got a building society.
Yeah, she's got an account.
It became obvious to me within seconds that it wasn't a genuine inquiry because of the way they asked questions.
Well, how much would she get then?
Oh, rather less.
How much less?
Well, you'd need at least a £26,000 deposit.
That's ridiculous.
It's stupid.
What's wrong with her money anyway?
Do you rent anything?
No, I'm sorry.
Right, okay.
I'm sure that it was set up by somebody who knew me. Somebody had told them that I wore rings of immense value.
Keith? Keith?
I'm sorry, yes, what you need?
Keith?
I'm a bit busy. All right.
I'm looking for a flat, 38,000. £38,000 or anything like that.
Oh, I don't think I've anything.
In the window, you have.
It was just such a dreadful experience. It left me feeling absolutely desolate.
I'd like to see it.
I'll have to ring them.
The details, the particulars.
So I went to the filing cabinet to get out some details, and he hit me over the back of the head. I said to myself, God, I hope this is a nightmare. I'm going to wake up.
Go on. I say, Karen.
Get your head down.
Get those rings off, come on. What are you doing, John? Keep yourself quiet, sunshine, otherwise you're going to get yourself seriously hurt. Now get your face down.
Where's that
Get
ring?
yourself keep your head down. Don't you look at that.
Do it a minute.
I realised after they hit me 3 times that it was really stupid to try and resist them in any way.
Get your head down.
Get those rings off, come on. What are you doing, John?
I felt them rip my rings off my fingers, and they broke my jaw.
Leave her alone. You're going to get yourself hurt, sunshine. Now you keep your face down. 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 Come on.
They were so violent. I didn't understand the violence, and I still don't.
You're in there. Look in the bag. Where's the key of the back door?
There's no key in here. Where's the key to the back door?
Where's the key?
It's not in here. Hello.
They should be locked away forever. I just hate anybody else to have to go through what I've gone through.
Inspector Roger Herbert is looking for those two men, and he needs your help. First, let's establish, why was she wearing a ring that was so valuable?
I think these days, more and more, we are finding that people don't appreciate the value of the property they own until such times as it gets lost or stolen. I think that was certainly the case in respect of Karen Young, who'd had this ring for 15 years and worn it day in, day out, and she just did not realise the value of it.
It wasn't insured.
No, it wasn't.
She's offering a reward of £20,000 to whoever can turn up with the ring.
Yes, she is indeed.
But I suppose much more important than the jewellery is what happened to her and to her colleague, the violence, the sheer extent of the violence. I don't know if you've witnessed anything like that aftermath of violent crime before.
No, I haven't. On the reconstruction, you saw several minutes of violence, extreme violence. In fact, they were subjected to a period of
several seconds, not several minutes.
Seconds. You see, they were subjected to 15 to 20 minutes of such violence. Worst violence that I've ever come across, anyway.
OK, now let's just take a look at what they did steal. It was one of the rings, the biggest rings, was a very, very large gem indeed at the centre of it.
That's right, that's a very expensive ring. That is a 5 to 6 carat solitaire diamond, very pure.
It might have been broken up, but any gem dealer would recognise that.
Yes, unfortunately that probably would have been broken up, but that is the identifiable gem.
Now, the men who stole that and the men who used this extraordinary level of violence, what do we know about them?
Well, we know that it was an unnecessary amount of violence that they used. We know that the first man, in his mid-30s, he was 5'10", stocky build, and he had dark hair. He had a Cockney accent and was described as being very scruffy.
And the other man, the older one?
The second man was older, he was taller, he was also stocky, and again had dark hair, again with a Cockney accent described as being scruffy.
Right, well there's our video fit of him, though obviously the witnesses were under some duress when they saw that. Now, the women, which I think you do tend to associate with the crime, the women that came into the estate agents on Saturday.
Yes, I have nothing to directly connect them with the offence, but their inquiry in that office on the Saturday prior to the offence was certainly unusual for this type of premises.
Now, it's desperately important, presumably, if those two women are watching and had nothing to do with it, that they come forward of their own volition.
Yes, whilst it may have been an innocent visit, I do need to interview them, if that is the case, and eliminate them from this inquiry.
Somebody must know the two men that perpetrated that violence.
Somebody must. Somebody is probably shielding those two men. And in view of the violence that was used, I would ask that if anybody is shielding them, that they come forward and give me a ring.
All right, Inspector Herbert, thank you very much. The number to ring is 01811 8055, 01811 8055. Let me stress, you can speak in absolute confidence. You can talk to a BBC researcher if you prefer, rather than to a detective. Or you can call Thames Valley Police in Amersham. That's 02403, that's the code for Amersham, 3033. 02403 3033. We start this month with an armed robbery. Lothian and Borders Police, who asked for our help, say it was a miracle that no one was hurt in the affair. The reconstruction you're about to see is as accurate as possible, given eyewitness accounts. The robbers you see are, of course, actors, but they resemble eyewitness descriptions. Remember, people's memories aren't infallible, and no doubt it will emerge that some of the details turn out to be different. If you can give more information, or if you saw anything to do with the robbery, please do call us. It happened 3 months ago in Edinburgh. The date is Friday, the 1st of March. The people of Edinburgh are to witness an extraordinary chase through the main streets of the city. This is Waterloo Place in the centre of Edinburgh. At 4:30 p.m, this blue Ford Cortina with 3 men inside stopped opposite the Edinburgh housing offices. The car had been stolen from Glasgow the day before. One man stayed outside and one went inside as though he was a council tenant here to pay his rent. But instead of going to the counter, he sat with cleaners who were waiting for the offices to close. Several minutes later, a Securicorps van arrived to collect the day's takings from the cashiers, leaving a guard to keep watch in the back of the van. Normally, the guards would have collected the money and come straight out. But today, the cashiers weren't ready, and there was a 15-minute wait. This long delay enabled witnesses in the building to give a very full description of one of the robbers. He seemed about 30 years old, 6 feet tall, well built with black, straggly, unwashed hair and a scruffy moustache. He had a pale complexion. It's now 4:45 p.m. It seems that by looking through the window into the cashier's office, the accomplice outside was able to give a signal that the guards were about to emerge.
Get down! Get down!
Attack, 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 394, Housing Department, Waterloo Place.
Get down! Hold on! Get down!
At the front!
Come on, get a foot down! Come on! Run this side, they'll not expect you to go down. Come on, get a foot down! Go as fast as I can, shut up! Up here, turn right, up the hill! Right again! Right, quick! Aye! Bastard still behind us! Right, jump the lights, ignore them! Come on! Jesus Christ! Right behind us! Come on, hurry up, will you?
The second impact caused the van to swerve and hit a parked car. As the Cortina sped down the Royal Mile, the robbers found they were on their own. For the moment, they'd got away.
Turn right!
At the bottom of the Royal Mile, they swerved right into the car park of Scottish and Newcastle breweries. The van had lost them from its sight and drove straight past.
This way!
Over a dozen witnesses saw the men running through the car park. Several said that one was now wearing a bright red sweater. The Securicorps van had lost them, and with a burst radiator, it had to give up the chase. Inspector Tom Snedden is the detective now hunting for the robbers. How can the public help?
Well, I would ask anyone who witnessed the robbery or the subsequent chase through the streets of Edinburgh to contact us if we've not already interviewed them.
Now, as we said, we've got a very good description of at least one of the robbers. Just tell us again what we know about him.
I think it's important to emphasise the point that the men are actors. The description of the gunman, he's about 6 feet, approximately 30 years of age. He's well built, he was unshaven, he's got a moustache, he's got black straggly hair, which is unwashed, falling over his forehead. We know for a fact that he was wearing a blue parka jacket with a hood which is trimmed with fur.
Right, and the second man?
The second man and the third man, they're both rather patchy, the descriptions. The second man is approximately 25 to 30 years. He's 5'7", he's well built. He's unshaven, he's possibly got a beard. He was wearing a ski cap, either brown or green, and a green jacket. The driver, who's the third man, he, in fact, has got short hair, he's about 27. He's clean-shaven, but we do have witnesses speaking to the fact that he's possibly got a bad complexion, pockmarked or spotted face.
Now, you mentioned things that they were wearing. On the other hand, when we saw them in the last shot as they were escaping from the car park, one of them, it seemed, was wearing a bright red pullover as they ran off into Holyrood Road.
That's correct. We believe that, in fact, they've changed clothes in the car. You would also notice that they were only carrying one bag because there was 4 bags stolen, and we believe they've put them into one hold all.
Right. Now, presumably you lost sight of them after the car park, so you want anybody who might have seen suspicious people running away beyond that point?
That is correct. Anyone in a wearing a red jersey or carrying a hold all in the area of Holyrood Road
right.
come forward.
Now, I mentioned that the car had been stolen from Glasgow the day before, which was, if I remember correctly, February the 28th. It was stolen in Glasgow, the registration number, I've got it here, SSF 701V.
Yes.
Now, you need to know more about that car, presumably, where it was in the intervening 24 hours.
The car was stolen from Langside College Car Park, which is near Battlefield Road in Glasgow. It was stolen approximately between 7:30 p.m. and 9 p.m, and we would appeal to anyone who saw the car between these times and the time of the robbery to come forward.
Right, so it's the car you need to trace in that intervening 24 hours, though you've obviously got it back now.
Yes.
You need to find any of the 3 men responsible. You want to see anybody who saw the chase, whether or not they feel they've anything important to tell you.
That is correct, because these men could be from any part of the country and not necessarily from Edinburgh. And I would appeal to anybody who, in fact, either knows the men from the descriptions or think they know them, to contact myself or the numbers given, and they can speak to us in confidence.
All right, Inspector Snedden, thank you. The number to ring, if you can help, is 01811 8055. Or you can call Lothian and Borders Police directly on Edinburgh 311 3131. That's 031, the code for Edinburgh, 311 3131. As you'll have observed, some of the reconstructions we show on CrimeWatch are necessarily vivid and disturbing. In July last year, we reconstructed an attack on the customers of a pub in Liverpool. The violence that we showed so appalled some viewers that they were moved to give information. One of them was actually a criminal himself. As a result of those calls, Merseyside police arrested 2 men, and last week one was sentenced to 12 and the other to 16 years imprisonment. Our final case tonight is equally shocking. Again, we're showing you exactly what happened in the hope that someone, once again, will come forward.
In the early hours of April the 22nd, Wallace and Mary Foster were attacked in their home in Surrey. The motive was clearly robbery, but because the attackers were so violent, they must be caught before they strike again. The language and the action is as accurate as possible. Our reconstruction begins at the Fosters' home at Church House Antiques in Weybridge. Wallace and Mary Foster had retired to bed at about 11:30 that night. The younger of their 2 sons, Zenos, was asleep in the next room. The older one, James, slept on the other side of the house, above the shop. He very often went downstairs in the middle of the night to raid the fridge, so his parents were used to hearing occasional noises. It was just about 2 o'clock in the morning when intruders crept round the side of the house and into the back garden. There was no alarm system. The two men jemmied open the French windows unheard. Wallace Foster was woken by noises inside the house. Then he heard the sound of the sliding door at the bottom of the stairs.
Is that you, James?
Yeah, it's me, Dad.
Got problems. Get back! Back! The gun's loaded on shoot! Okay, you want to have a go, do you?
Both men spoke with London, though not Cockney, accents. The dark-skinned man was in his late 20s to early 30s and heavily built. The white man was slim and looked younger than his partner.
You got any belts? Dressing room, you'll find some. What's this then, eh? It's an air rifle. Don't look like an air rifle to me. Antique, is it?
They were well enough informed about the family to know that they had 2 sons, and they knew Mrs. Foster's first name, Mary.
You can watch! Now, cut it out, lads. I've got kids in the house. Why don't you just take the money and go? All right, who's in the room next door, eh? He's 5. Leave him alone. He'll sleep right through this. The very sound sleep. Where's the other one? Eh? He's in a separate flat on the other side of the shop.
You got a telephone in there?
Only an extension.
Yeah, well, we'll hear it if he picks it up.
Yeah, we'll hear it.
Right. So it's the gun you're interested in, is it? Well, it's loaded, see? And there's the shells.
Eat that pillowcase, Pat. Right, you got any suitcases? Yes. You're gonna open the safe.
Keys to the safe. Does she know how to open the safe?
Of course she knows how to open the safe. Check this, antique suitcases.
Very nice.
Come on, you, up. Come on, do you want some of this?
Stay put!
Come on! Move it! Down them stairs! Come on, Mary. There's Mary in it. Get in there. Right then, let's see what you've got, eh? Yeah. Now listen, if you don't do what I say, you're gonna get hurt real bad. Understand? You're gonna get raped. I've done this before, you know. Get over there and get that safe open. Move it! Come on, open it, woman! Come on.
I warn you, I'm not used to opening this.
Just get it done, will you? Come on, hurry it up! Right.
What? I've got it wrong.
You slag!
There are 4 numbers, and it's very difficult. So please, if you calm down, I'll be able to...
Come on, get this thing open, or you're gonna get it real bad. Get it done, come on, for Christ's sake. Get up. It's the only place you keep valuables.
In his hurry to grab as much as he could from the safe, the robber let a silver dish fall onto the floor.
Just stay there, you won't get hurt, all right? What's going on? What's up?
It's all right. Don't worry. It's sweet. Get back upstairs.
Don't worry about the silver. Just take the cash, all right?
Yeah.
Right.
Wallace was shot twice in the stomach before he managed to fire his gun, narrowly missing the villain's head. As he did so, a 3rd shot hit him in the groin.
He got loose! I've shot him! He's got a gun! Come on!
Shit!
In that final struggle, Mary was punched viciously in the face. The men escaped, leaving almost everything behind except about £2,000 in cash and a few items of jewellery. Well, that was a month ago. Detective Superintendent John Gladwell, how are Mr. and Mrs. Foster now?
They're both remarkably well. Mrs. Foster has slight bruising to the face. Mr. Foster has a bullet still lodged in the base of his spine, which is causing him some concern and a little pain. But apart from that, doing very well.
Well, perhaps we can try and help find those violent robbers tonight. There's quite a bit to go on, isn't there? You've had several witnesses come forward already.
Yes, we have.
Perhaps we've got a reconstruction of one witness who saw on the day before, the Saturday before the actual crime, in the afternoon. He's the driver of this car. He saw 2 men walking towards Church House Antiques. Now, the white man stopped to peer in the shop window, while the black man continued walking past the witness's car and then out of his sight. We don't know what he did in those few moments, but he couldn't see him. Then, after a while, the black man returned and joined his companion at the shop window. They then walked back the same way they'd come, which is slightly unusual behaviour. Have you got descriptions for those two men?
Yes, we have. A better description of the black man than the white man, but the black man was 30 to 32 years of age, 5'8" to 9", stocky build, about 12 or 13 stone. And the white man was the same age, 30 to 32, again 5'8" to 5'9", slim to medium build.
Right, the black man was heavy, the white man was slim.
That's right.
Now, there were about 3 hours before the attack took place, there were several witnesses who report seeing two very particular cars which were cruising around very close to Church House Antiques. It was a woman who noticed a pale blue Jaguar. She was in this car. She noticed a pale blue Jaguar and a metallic-coloured Rover driving into the car park of KBC Limited, where she works. She'd stopped off to check security at the firm. Now, as she went into the car park, she saw two young women sitting in the Rover, and they were calling out to two men in the Jaguar. Now, as the witness walked back, the Jaguar pulled out of the car park, and she particularly noticed that the driver was wearing a camouflage jacket. The Rover then followed with the two young women. Now, there's one other sighting, in fact, wasn't there? So we're going to have a look at that in a minute. Here it is. It was about 20 minutes later, a taxi driver passing Church House Antiques, and he had to slow down to avoid two parked cars. One of those parked cars was a Jaguar, and the other one a Rover. So do you think those two cars were linked with the crime? They were very close, weren't they?
Yes, indeed they were. They were, in fact, seen 3 times. The first time was at 10:20 in a nearby car park. We are very interested in these vehicles for obvious reasons. The driver of the Jaguar was wearing the camouflage jacket, which was similar to the camouflage jacket worn by the white intruder. We've had no stolen vehicles from our area. We've had no stolen vehicles found abandoned in our area. So we've reason to believe that the people that committed this crime used their own vehicle.
And the taxi driver, our second witness, was carrying 2 passengers at the time, and they haven't come forward yet.
No, that's right. He was carrying a male and a female who he had picked up from Hussein's restaurant in Weybridge, and he had dropped them off in Sunnyside at Walton-on-Thames. And although we've appealed locally, they haven't yet come forward, and I appeal to them to come forward tonight.
Right. Now, the two robbers left behind one vital clue, that canvas bag.
Yes, it's a common bag, but inside, painted in yellow, is a number which may mean something to somebody. It's 113, then there's a gap, and then the figure 8, and on the line underneath, the letter S, or the figure 5.
So that could be vital if somebody can tell us where that came
Yes,
from.
indeed, I would.
What exactly, in the end, did they get away with? It wasn't very much in the end.
No, just a few pieces of jewellery, 3 in particular, we're very interested in because there's only been 2 of this kind made.
Those 2 pieces on the screen now, there have only ever been 2 of each one ever made.
That's right.
So...
and I would ask that if anybody has bought these items or they've been offered for sale, if they could also contact us.
So once again, there's a lot of distinctive information. There's those pieces of jewellery, there are the 2 cars which are seen in the area. Yes. Anything else you'd like people to come forward with to help you?
Yes, if we're right in our assumption that the Rover and the Jaguar are involved in our offence, then obviously these vehicles were in the Weybridge area for some 3.5 hours. And I would ask any person that was in the Weybridge area, particularly in the area of Church Street, to come forward if they haven't already been spoken to by a police officer.
And there was one anonymous caller you told me about who you'd like to call you again.
Yes, on the Sunday after the offence, anonymous male phoned Mrs Foster at home and gave certain information about the black man, and I would ask him to come forward in confidence. This was a particularly violent attack, and we must catch these men before they strike again. Mr Foster, fortunately, was very, very lucky, but if they do strike again, the next victim may not be quite so fortunate.
Mr Gladwell, thank you very much indeed.
Indeed, we did cut out a lot of the violence, so if you know who they are, please do ring in. If you can help before these 2 men strike again, this is the number, 01811 8055. 01811 8055. If you prefer, you can call Surrey Police at Addlestone. The number there is Weybridge 45544. That's 0932 for Weybridge 45544. Now, until recently, criminals as much as anyone considered stealing from a church quite unacceptable. It seems now the reverse is true. Churches, unlocked and often full of treasure, are uniquely vulnerable to burglary. Robert Runcie, the Archbishop of Canterbury, told CrimeWatch he believes that our cities and our countryside are impoverished because churches are so often closed for their protection. In fact, each year, 1 in every 4 churches is either vandalised or burgled, and over £1 million worth of church property is stolen. There's no obvious pattern to these crimes, but it does seem that in many cases, the thieves aren't amateurs.
In February, in Stoke-on-Trent at St Mary's and Chad Parish Church, a 10-foot by 5-foot oak crucifix was stolen. It's worth £2,000, and it was cut down and removed from where it stood outside the church. In the northeast, in May this year, St Andrew's Church in Gateshead was broken into at night. The safe was forced open with a pickaxe, and £6,500 worth of communion silver was stolen. And near Doncaster, at the beginning of April, St Catherine's Church in the tiny village of Loversall had nearly £2,000 worth of antique furniture and brass stolen.
The real mystery about these thefts is where the criminals sell the items that they steal. There has to be a market. You're about to see a reconstruction which involves 2 thefts, one in Gloucestershire and one in York. On the face of it, they're quite unconnected. It may prove they're more than a coincidence that the relics stolen are very similar. The story begins in Tewkesbury in Gloucestershire.
Tewkesbury Abbey on a winter's afternoon. It was Monday, the 28th of January. Among the Abbey's most valuable relics is this 14th century Madonna and Child. It's valued at £34,000 and one of only 2 in the world. The handyman, Malcolm Isles, noticed 2 men in the Abbey that afternoon. They appeared to be taking a rather closer interest in the layout of the church than most tourists do. One was about 5'8" with dark hair, and the other was taller with light collar-length hair. Two hours later, as a parishioner arrived just before evensong, she too saw a light-haired man entering the abbey.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you.
He seemed rather well-spoken. That parishioner's daughter and the abbey sacristan saw him too. He spent some minutes inspecting the cloister door.
What's that chap doing behind there?
"6 p.m. The sacristan shut the abbey as usual. Police now know that sometime that night a wooden bench was used by someone as a ladder to one of the windows. The burglar clearly knew what he was after. He'd got to the Madonna and Child despite the specially toughened glass. The escape was made by picking the lock on the cloister door. York, 5 months later, Friday the 14th of June. St Olave's Church, Marygate, is 11th century, an active place of worship and a tourist attraction. The vicar, the Reverend Alan Heslop, and a local architect arrived at 2:30. The new roof of the Lady Chapel needed a final inspection. While he was up there, the architect recalls hearing the organist practicing. around 2:45, the Reverend Heslock paused to listen to the Bach prelude. There was one other person enjoying the music, a local visitor who also remembers admiring the alabaster Madonna and Child, an 18th century statue greatly valued by the parishioners. Just after 3, Mrs. Parks, one of the flower arrangers, arrived. She too recalls seeing some people in the church.
When I came through the door, I just glanced round casually, and standing with his back to me, looking right down the church, there was a man dressed in fawn clothes with a fawn bag. There were a couple of tourists about halfway down the aisle. While I was in the vestry, I was vaguely conscious all the time of people moving about, as they would walking up and down on stone floors, and of the noise that's made when the front door slams back shut behind someone. I finished the vase, then I carried it outside, down the side aisle. I just noticed out of the corner of my eye that there was no statue on the plinth.
Between 3 and 3:30, it had been stolen. To remove a 2.5-foot statue secured to a steel mounting was almost certainly a professional job.
Sergeant Richard Hall, let's take the York robbery first, the St Olave's Church one. What do you hope to find out?
Well, we hope to trace the person that was seen in there that afternoon. The York police haven't managed to trace yet. All we can say is he was dressed in fawn clothing and carrying a fawn bag.
It was Friday the 14th of June. Now, people won't remember that date unless they go back in their diaries. You want anybody who was in St Olave's Church?
Between 3 and 3:30 that afternoon, in particular.
Just to call you?
Yes.
OK, they might have some information. Now, what about the Tewkesbury one? What do you hope to find out there?
Well, again, there were 2 people who we haven't traced that afternoon acting very suspiciously in the Abbey. They were seen by several people, parishioners. The particular one man was 6 foot tall. He had fair curly hair down to his shoulders, and he's described as having his eyes wide apart. Could be foreign looking. We're anxious to trace him and a smaller man with dark hair who was seen with him, acting suspiciously, in fact, by the doorway where the offenders escaped.
Did he have a foreign accent?
He had what described as a good accent, cultured accent.
Right, OK. Now, the Madonnas themselves, if they've been sold to a dealer, what would they know about them? How would they recognise them?
Well, the small Madonna from Tewkesbury Abbey is thought to be only one of 2 in the world at the present time. It is slightly damaged. The offender may not have known that when he stole it, because I think he stole it to order. It's got a slit in the back of the ivory running about 4 inches from the base.
Right, and what about the York?
The larger one, the crown on the child is been damaged in the past and has been stuck on. So there would be evidence that it's been repaired.
Right. That's 2.5 feet tall. Now, for somebody to steal this, you say they stole it to order. This is organised.
It's definitely organised, and it's a sorry day that we've got to lock our churches and cathedrals and abbeys, because there's some marvellous stuff on show.
Indeed it is. Well, good luck. If there's anything that you can do to help, please do call us. The number here, if you think you can help, 018118055. There are detectives from both inquiries in the studio. Of course, if you prefer and you want to talk in confidence, you can speak to a BBC researcher.
Our last case is an armed robbery which happened just under a month ago. At least 4 men, 2 of them armed, attacked a Securicorps van in St Albans. They escaped with well over £100,000 in cash. For security reasons, we can't show some of the fine details of the robbery, but as you'll see, there are many ways in which you might be able to help. The date was Saturday the 15th of June. That was the morning the papers had their first reports of the TWA hijack, which had started the day before. Although the robbery took place in Hertfordshire, our reconstruction starts in London. Just around the corner from the busy junction at Bounds Green tube station, sometime between 10 p.m. on Thursday the 2nd of May and 2:15 the following afternoon, a red Ford Cortina was stolen from its parking place in Oak Lane. Five weeks later, opposite Wembley Conference Centre in West London, a blue Ford Granada was stolen. Both the Cortina and the Granada had an appointment to keep 2 days later in St Albans. On the morning of Saturday the 15th of June, the day of the robbery, the manager of the Co-op Dairy in Burley Road arrived as usual at around 8 o'clock. At about 10 to 5 that afternoon, a witness remembers seeing a red Cortina pull up at the back of the dairy in Oakdean Way. The driver hurried across the road to a blue Granada. Half an hour later, a witness remembers seeing 2 men walking past Alban Court towards the dairy next door. They were wearing green overalls, so he assumed them to be milkmen. He described the one sitting on the wall as being about 5'10" to 6 foot tall and thick set. It looked as though he was wearing a dark brown wig or toupee. Another witness also saw the 2 men as she was waiting for a taxi. She had a good look at the other man. He was about 5'8" tall, with dark brown greying hair under his woolen ski hat, and she noticed in particular that he was wearing rubber gloves. As her taxi pulled away, she glanced at the blue Granada that had been parked there for some time. The driver was in his late 30s or early 40s, was slightly balding and had a moustache. It was just after 5:30 that afternoon when a Securicor van drove up Burley Road towards the dairy. The driver only vaguely noticed a milkman apparently washing the manager's car as he pulled up to make his regular collection of the takings.
Get your hands up. Switch it on!
Right, that's...
Hurry up.
Shut up!
Get them
Hurry
hands.
up! Come on!
I think we're being done. Christ, the phone's dead.
That's a lot.
Come on, do the twirls.
Stay there!
Chief Inspector Mick Howley is the man looking for the getaway. Now, they must have been seen. That was a noisy getaway. Where did they go?
Well, they turned right out of Burley Road into Castle Road, right into Ashley Road, across the Hill End Hospital roundabout, into Drake's Drive, and then left into Selbarns Lane.
Were they seen on that route, as far as you know?
Yes, they abandoned the Blue Granada on the car park of the Squash Club. The vehicle was seen to contain 2 men. It was followed at that time by a white, family-sized hatchback, which we believe may be connected.
Now, we know the numbers of those cars, and you've actually got number plates from them.
Yes, both the vehicles. The red Cortina bore the false index plate VSE 115X. The blue Granada A724 SJD. Now, most reputable companies that make up these plates keep records. So obviously we're appealing to anybody who may have remembered making up these plates.
Right. Now, the men involved, you've got a very good description of at least one of them.
Yes, the second man, the video fit, is described as mid-40s, a long, chubby face, dark hair, approximately 15 stone, believed to be wearing a wig.
So his hair might not actually be dark.
That is correct.
Right, and you've got a good description, not quite so good, but a good description of a second man.
Yes, the second man, slightly smaller.
This is the one with the pistol.
Probably 5'8". He was wearing a balaclava, He's slightly slimmer in build, ruddy complexion.
Right. You recovered some of the bags in which the money was stolen. Tell me about that.
Yes. 2 days later, on the Monday, this cricket bag was found in the River Lee between Tottenham and Lee Bridge. We'd obviously like to hear from anybody who saw anybody disposing of a bag such as this into the River Lee, either from a bridge or the riverbank, because they may well be connected.
Right. What are these rather... that's a rather vicious-looking thing. What's the point of that?
This very, very heavy chain and this container here, which contained ammonia, were in the bucket, and obviously this ruthless gang would have used these weapons together with the firearms if things had not gone according to plan.
They're prepared to squirt ammonia in someone's face?
I have no doubt about that at all.
So they're obviously men who are quite prepared to use violence.
Very ruthless.
There is, I'm told, a reward.
There is a very substantial reward on offer for information leading to the arrest and prosecution of these men. We hope that persons, close associates perhaps, of these suspects may come forward being attracted by the reward.
OK, Inspector Howley, thank you very much. Please do call us if you know anything. The number to ring, if you can help, is 01811 8055, or you can call Hertfordshire Police at Welwyn Garden City. The number there, Welwyn Garden City 331 011. That's 0707 331 011. In the last 12 months, one man has been responsible for 11 raids on building societies. He started in Catford in South London and has since struck throughout London and the home counties. In total, the robber has now stolen nearly £500,000. He's quiet, he's well-spoken, and he's armed with a pistol or a sawn-off shotgun. Now, he's almost courteous sometimes, but though he may not know it, he's left 11 people and their families frightened and disturbed. He's attacked each building society with the same technique. He waits till they've closed, and then he singles out one member of staff who holds the keys. We're showing you security details which we're assured have since been changed. The raid we're reconstructing was at the end of June in Brentwood, Essex. For Peter Chapman, the assistant manager, June the 28th was like any other Friday evening. He was looking forward to the weekend. Just after 5 o'clock, he ushered out the staff and locked the premises. His car was in a small private car park at the back of the building society.
Tyres slashed.
Yeah, same thing happened last Tuesday.
It's happened to me 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I told the police about it, but there's nothing they can do. They said there's been a spate of them in Brentwood. You work here, do you? Abbey National?
Yeah, assistant manager.
I've been toying with the idea of opening a couple of building society accounts.
You should do. Come and see me, we'll talk about it, all right?
Yeah, why not? Love to. I'll tell you what. You know, somebody told me that if it's a regular thing, you can claim criminal damages from the police.
I'll go straight down the cop shop. I know a few of them down there anyway.
You know what this is, don't you? Get into the passenger seat. Move! Put your hands on the dash. You're not surprised, are you?
Just give me a couple of minutes to get my breath back, all right?
Would you like a drink? A cigarette?
No.
You're not going to do anything silly, are you?
No, I'm not daft.
You tell me in detail about the alarm systems in your branch now.
Well, as the first alarm systems we go into the building...
Peter Chapman had no option. For several minutes, the gunman questioned him, but it was clear that he already knew it all.
If anything goes off, you are in trouble. In a minute, we're going to go back round the front. Now, if you try to run away or say anything, I may not kill you, But you'll never walk again, because I'll shoot you in the back. And if we see anybody on our way around, you should acknowledge them. And you chat to me as if you've known me for years. Put your jacket on. Get out. You all right?
Fine.
I'm sorry about your tire. I'll give you some money for another one. It's the only way I could stop you. Get my briefcase. We'll go in. Open the safe.
I'll have to get the key stem from my drawer.
I know. Take the tins out of the safe and open them.
I can't. The cashiers have got the only keys.
You can use the spares that are taped on the back of the door, can't you? Good. Walk away from the safe. Sit on the floor. Sit. Now lie face down with your hands out front and your legs spread. Now! Put your hands behind your back.
You're not taking me with you then?
Put your legs together. No, you've been a good boy, so I won't. I'm going now. Stay there. Don't even think about moving for at least 10 minutes. What the bloody hell do you think you're doing? I told you to stay there.
Chief Inspector John Bassett, what happened next?
The assistant manager was tied up again, and he was left unharmed. The robber then left the building society, stole the assistant manager's car, and left it unattended in a multi-storey car park 150 yards away.
Now that, as we saw, was a white Escort, so people might have seen him driving it to the car park, and of course they might have seen him in that walk from the car park at the back of the Abbey National round to the front.
Yes, what we're looking for is anyone that was in Brentwood at this particular point in time and saw the robber taking the assistant manager to the bank, or saw anything at the multi-storey car park which made them suspicious.
Round there to the Abbey National Building Society. Now, I gather the robber was so audacious that he actually, at one stage, in a different attack, took a building society member of staff on a bus at gunpoint.
Yes, what he did back in February of this year, he waited for the assistant manager to arrive home at Bromley, and then once he'd alighted from the bus, he took him back to the branch in Lewisham on a 208 bus, and that is a distance of 3.5 miles. And again, we're looking for anybody that can remember this incident at all.
7:20 p.m, this is the 5th of February.
That is correct, yes.
Now, you've got some photo fits, you've got at least some descriptions of the man. We've got here some pictures, and in the centre that's a composite, is that right, from different raids?
That's very, very good indeed.
And we've also got a video fit, which we at CrimeWatch have compiled.
Yes, that is even better, but I do feel that the greatest likeness is the likeness of your actor to our suspect, and this has been verified by 2 assistant managers who have seen him, and when he's walked in unannounced, they've been terrified of him.
Yes, I must make this point that he looks an almost glamorous character, cool, collected, and kids, other people may think he's almost heroic. In fact, he must have absolutely terrified people out of their wits and affected their families quite a lot.
Yes, there's nothing glamorous about this man at all. He is a dedicated, ruthless robber who will go to any lengths to secure his ends.
What, do you think he'd shoot? He'd use that gun or the knife that we saw?
Well, to date, he's been quite vicious. He hasn't harmed anybody physically yet, but I do fear that if he's allowed to continue, he will wound someone or maybe fatally, or wound them fatally.
You brought this piece of string. Now tell me the significance of that.
Well, this is string that he used to bind up his victims in the earlier raids on the building societies. We've had it tested forensically, and I'm told that it's not manufactured in this country or even in Ireland, and we feel that possibly it was manufactured on the continent and is a cheap rope that is possibly used in agriculture.
Which you want to trace. I gather, very unusually, there's a reward on this.
There is. This is unprecedented. The Abbey National, because they view this man so seriously, are making a reward of £10,000 for any person that can give me information that will lead to the arrest and conviction of this man.
All right, Chief Inspector Bassett, thank you very much. If you can help in any way, please do so before this man really does shoot someone. You might save a life by calling, in confidence, 01811 8055. Or you can ring, remember the reward, Central Robbery Squad on 01230 2061. That's 01230 2061. Or rather, CrimeWatch viewers have. The first of this month's reconstructions features an armed robbery. There are at least 3 gunmen, and finesse is not their hallmark. They're prepared to shoot almost indiscriminately and at point-blank range. The story starts with the theft of this car from a garage in Tunbridge Wells. Within the next few days, it had turned up in south-east London. July the 1st, Brayards Road in Peckham, and this blue Rover had become a local nuisance. It's been parked here for 5 days, and a resident reports it to the police.
Yes, A111 NKN. Someone will move it, will they? OK.
And later that same day, the car was moved, but not by the police. The next known sighting of the Rover was 6 weeks later. That's mid-August, parked here at Wimbush in Milton Keynes. But by now, the number plates are different. Nearby, 2 men were seen to enter the site where Marriott's are building a large electronics factory. And a 3rd man, perhaps a lookout, was noticed outside the boundary fence. At 8:20 a.m, a Securicorps van arrived to deliver wages. At about the same time, the site engineer became suspicious about those strangers.
Who's that chap in the red hat there, do you know?
No, I don't.
What about these 2?
I haven't seen those before, no.
Securicorps had been making regular early morning wage deliveries to Marriott's for several months. They'd established something of a pattern, and the waiting strangers were obviously expecting the van to drive straight into the compound. Today there was a change of plan, and the van pulled up outside.
keys or you're dead! Move! Here's the keys, don't shoot!
I think they're flexed, Jerry! Lads, get them! It's a line! Let's get them!
Bastard!
Out!
Although he'd been shot, the foreman got up and went on with the chase and shouted to a lorry to ram the getaway car.
Ram the rover!
The Rover turned down Pitfall Road, then went left into Carter Lane. The police aren't sure if there were 3 or 4 men in the car. It was here at the Kiln Farm Industrial Estate at the back of Tesco's where they abandoned the Rover. It's a mile away from the robbery. Detective Superintendent John Chilsley is the man who's now after them. But first, tell us something about the extraordinary bravery of those building workers. Quite remarkable.
They're very brave men indeed, but their action was one I would not recommend because those 2 workers who had tackled the gunman were very lucky not to be killed.
Indeed. There was, of course, the driver of the spherical van who was shot, but we didn't show that.
That's right.
Now, the man who shot him was the one with the yellow hat on. What do we know about that man?
We've made up video fits of 2 men. The first one is the man, as you say, who shot the driver and the worker. He is about 30 years of age, 5'8" tall, slim build. As you see, he's wearing a yellow hat and glasses, and at the time he was wearing overalls.
OK, now let's try and take those glasses and that hat from him and see what happens. And there he is, about 30 years of age.
30 years of age.
Right, and you say you've got a second video.
The second one was the man who climbed into the cab of the vehicle and threatened the guard to hand over the keys and the cash. He's about 30 to 40 years of age, 5'10", again slim build, wearing glasses, but he was wearing a black leather jacket and dark trousers. And we believe that glasses were in fact a form of disguise.
And there he is, without the glasses. Does anyone recognise that man? The third and possibly fourth man you don't know, and you haven't got descriptions or good enough descriptions of them.
That's right.
What about the car, though? That's been all over the place, hasn't it? Starting in Tunbridge Wells.
The car started off being stolen in Tunbridge Wells on the 27th of June. It then was seen in Peckham on the 1st of July. And from there, it next appeared in Milton Keynes on the 15th of August, on the day of the robbery. We're obviously interested in the period between the 1st of July and the 15th of August, wanting to know where that vehicle was and did anybody see it.
And, of course, sometime between those dates, the car numbers changed.
That's correct.
From A111NKN to B523PHA. There is a reward out on this, I gather.
There is a reward for anyone who recognises those photo fits and can give evidence that leads to a conviction. There's £5,000 reward.
John Childerley, thank you very much indeed. The number to call if you can help, 01811 8055. Remember that reward. You can speak in absolute confidence to a detective, or, as always, you can ask for a BBC researcher. Or you can call police in Milton Keynes direct. Here's their number, 0908 678 787. 0908 678 787. Our last case is a robbery, and it's one police think may involve a gang who've been responsible for several other crimes. The victim was a businessman, Andy Christian, who owns a company in Liverpool that runs coach trips throughout Britain and Europe. A couple of months ago, he was attacked and injured, and it's the unprovoked use of violence that makes it so important that this gang is caught. Our reconstruction begins 2 weeks before the attack, when, perhaps it was just by coincidence, his company was broken into. On Thursday, the 1st of August, Andy Christian was making up wage packets and the foreign currency his coach drivers would need for their trips to the continent. Andy spent 10 years building up his company, Amberline, from a single minicab to a fleet of luxury coaches. He's something of a workaholic, and he was still in his office when the night watchman came on duty. And his offices are close to Speke Airport. There's a company garage and a 24-hour petrol station. His home in nearby Woolton is about 10 minutes' drive away. He's lived there in an old converted lodge house for 15 years. That Thursday evening, as always, all business calls to Amberline were diverted to the old lodge house.
Amberline. Yeah? Can I have your name and address, please?
They escaped with £16,000. 2 weeks later, on Friday evening, Andy was getting ready to leave work at the end of a busy week. He'd not had time to put his takings in the building society, and because of the recent break-in, he decided to take the money home. He left Amberline shortly after 7 o'clock. 5 coach loads were off to Spain the next day, so he intended to be back at 3 a.m. to see them off. He'd been to the city centre to post his pools coupon. The new football season began the next day. He finally reached home at about 10 to 8, but someone was waiting for him.
You bastard! Oh, shut up! Oh. Get his wallet!
Leave me alone. The money's in the briefcase. Oh.
Where's the car keys?
They're on the table.
Which way do we go?
Just go!
The officer hunting those men is Detective Inspector Jeff Harrison. Inspector, first of all, let me ask you about Mr. Christian's condition.
Yes, the physical scars have now healed, but the mental scar will remain forever. He suffered a vicious attack, and he remember it for the rest of his life.
I mean, he offered no resistance, and yet they attacked him quite strongly.
They did, yes. A nasty
now,
attack.
Was it just coincidence he'd taken all that cash home that night? Could they have known?
Well, since the first burglary, he took the money home because he had to pay the drivers out on the Saturday morning. So that was the second Friday that he had taken so much money home.
Right, I take it he takes precautions now.
He's completely changed his security system.
Right.
He's now using the services of a private security firm.
Another coincidence, or was it the break-in 2 weeks before the assault?
No, from inquiries we've made and information we've received so far, we believe that these 3 men are part of a group of 10 or 12 men in the southern Liverpool area who are committing similar offences.
A gang of 10 or 12?
That's what we believe so far.
Now, how can viewers help find who these people are?
Well, we're after information. Stolen in the second attack was the gentleman's wallet, a black leather wallet, with the initials JAC in gold lettering. That wallet contained £3,000 in £50 notes.
Now, presumably the wallet would have been discarded after they took the money.
We hope so, and we hope for information regarding its whereabouts, yes.
OK, so wallet with JAC, all those letters removed from it. And what else have you got there?
Also stolen from the attack was the gentleman's Daimler car key ring and 4 car keys.
Right. So anybody who's found that discarded anywhere. And the money that was in there, the £3,000, was that in any set denomination, or are you just looking for a lot of money?
They were all £50 notes in the wallet, and we're hoping for information that anyone's seen used in the area spending £50 notes in public houses, off-licence shops, etc.
Now, as we said in the film, he was an hour late or so getting home that evening because he'd been into town. So presumably they'd been hanging around waiting for him. If people had seen anything suspicious on the 16th of August, what would they have seen?
Well,
what
we hope
people
that it's a busy junction. 5 main roads join on the top of the hill, and these men must have been there for at least an hour before the gentleman arrived home, and we're hoping for information regarding the sightings.
OK, there's his home, the lodge, junction of Beaconsfield Road and Church Road in Woolton, and you can see it's not far from Amber Line coaches. There is, of course, a reward being offered.
Yes, this is a vicious attack with hardened criminals, and Mr Christian has offered a reward of £2,000.
Right, well, there you are, £2,000, no questions asked. If you can help us find these people, help the police arrest them. If you think you can, ring us here in the studio, 811 8055, 01811 8055, or ring Merseyside Police at Belle Vale Police Station. That's Liverpool 777 4283. That's 051 777 4283.
Well, now to tonight's cases. For several months, police in London and Hertfordshire have been following a trail of attempted armed robberies. Early in the morning, several men brandishing guns burst into a company on Wages Day. They hold the staff hostage and then they try to ambush the security van when it arrives. We've reconstructed their most recent raid, where this time they did succeed and they got away with £90,000. But our film starts 4 months before that, with CrimeWatch photographs based on police records of one of their earlier attempts. It happened in Hertfordshire, where the robbers gave notice of a sinister new weapon. Imperial Coal Stores was a depot for hops en route from Kent to breweries in the Midlands. It was due to close in 6 weeks' time, but in September there were still some 20 people employed there. Fred Jr., the gate man, arrived first and opened up the offices as usual. The other 5 people who worked with Fred in the office block would all be coming in during the next half hour or so. At 7:15 that morning, the only other person on the premises was Peter Bryant, a lorry driver, who was still asleep in his cab. Friday was Wages Day.
Good morning, Fred. Morning, Zaz. All right. Yeah, okay. You got a visitor, Fred. How will you know that?
Get up! And keep him quiet! Right, you come with me. Come on, get up! Get that fucking bastard. Go in there. Now you stay there. Right, there. Get down. Face the wall. Face it!
Where are your car keys?
In the ignition.
You tell the truth. If you're pissing your bar, I'll shoot you.
Stay there.
You will or something?
Got a heart condition.
Christ, oh, make yourself a cup of tea. Who's due to arrive next?
Store manager.
What's the front? I want to know the routine when the security van gets here.
Outside in the yard, Peter Bryant was quite unaware that anything was wrong.
Get in there! Well, sit where you normally sit. What about barrier? Is it usually up or down?
Down. It just depends.
Well, don't touch it. Leave it up. And don't warn anybody. Here. Try one. Don't forget, one of your mates died the other week. All right. Go on, put your hands on the seat. Come on, spread your legs. All right. All right. Do you know what this is? It's a remote control unit. And it works this. At the touch of a button, it goes off. What you're going to do is take your mate out some tea, get him out the cab, and if you let him know there's anything wrong, I'll press a button and blow your back out. Understand?
He like pick something.
You know, when he been gambling, he back one winner in his life. You remember when...
You open this bloody door! I'll blow your bloody head off! I can't open it! Open the bloody door! Come on! Hurry up, come on! The fucking money out the back, throw it up! Get moving! Get on! Get him! Right, turn it off! Turn the bloody motor off! Ow! Get out, you bastard! Come here, you little bloody toe rag! Out of the car! Come here! Come on! Get it! Okay, that's the last one! Get in the car! Let's go! Come on! Get out of here! Come on!
Well, terrifying. Detective Sergeant Jeff Hunter's in charge of that investigation. Was the employee we saw there actually shot?
Well, fortunately he wasn't, no. As you've seen, the gun was placed against the side of his head and was discharged, and he was dead for several days after that incident.
And how is the gate man, Fred Julia?
Mr. Julia, unfortunately, hasn't recovered. He suffers from a serious heart complaint, and that was aggravated by this incident.
So it's obviously vital that these men are caught. Could we have descriptions of them?
Yes, there were 4 men, but we really only have good descriptions of 2 of them. The first was in his early 40s, about 5'9" to 5'10". He was slim build, wearing a short black wig, and he had dark features. The second man was again in his early 40s, slightly shorter, about 5'7" to 5'8", had short, mousy-coloured hair, brushed across to cover a receding patch at the front.
And the first man with the black wig in particular seemed quite an unstable sort of character.
Yes, he was.
Now, that device which was strapped onto the back of the security guard, could it in fact have killed him?
Well, we know that it was a viable device, and as far as we are aware, it could have caused substantial, if not fatal, injury to the man.
And quite unnecessary, really, to make the threat a viable one.
Completely unnecessary.
Now, you've brought the actual device in that they used. Where did that come from?
Well, we know that there is an outlet in the north of London, in the Enfield area. It's a wholesale outlet. We'd be interested to know of anybody that has recently acquired these transmitters, or has come into possession of several of them in recent months.
That could be a vital clue. Now, you think that these same men have struck several times this year, unsuccessfully until now, so let's just recap on their previous attempts. Their first one was a bungled attack at Enfield Crematorium on the 25th of April. Then they tried again at the Cross and Herbert warehouse in Hoddesdon, Hertfordshire, and on the 3rd of May that was. Then their next attempt came on the 27th of June at Amtico in Ponders End. And finally it was on the 13th of September that they got away with the £90,000 at Tottenham. Now, how sure are you that all those attacks were linked?
Well, we are linking them because the methods are identical in each case. They're early morning attacks on premises which of themselves wouldn't be considered worthy of robbing. The descriptions of the men concerned are the same. The weapons used are the same.
And the premises are quite irrelevant, really?
Yes, the premises are irrelevant in that we feel that it was the security vehicle which at that time of the morning would be heavily loaded.
And do you believe, in fact, that these men are prepared to blow someone's back out, as they put it?
Well, there was an inordinate amount of violence used in this last attack. They've shown a willingness now to discharge firearms, and this device, completely unnecessary that it should be taken, it's a viable device which could have caused, as I've said, serious, if not fatal injury.
Well, Mr Hunt, thank you. There's a £9,000 reward for information leading to the conviction of those men. The number to call, if you can help, is 01811 8055. You can speak in confidence to a detective, or as always, you can ask for a BBC researcher. Or you can call the Central Robbery Squad direct on 01230 2061. That's 01230 2061. Well, our last reconstruction tonight takes us into the countryside, to Derbyshire at the edge of the Peak District. It's a part of the world more used to poaching than violent crime, so an armed bank robbery has been a shock to the whole community. A security guard has still not recovered from the attack. It happened 2 months ago in the village of Cromford, near Matlock, and police are afraid that the gang might strike again. Cromford is busy with tourists during the summer months, but by September the 18th, most of them had gone, returning the village to its usual tranquility. Never in its 100-year history had there been a robbery at the tiny bank in the main street. 15 miles away in Ilkeston that day, a group of men were planning an unwelcome visit to Cromford. They drove into New Oakwell Garage to hire a car. They were leaving it rather late. They were due in Cromford in 2 hours' time. One of the men presented a licence which police now know had been stolen from Nottingham last year.
Sign it for me, just there, please.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just check. I'm sorry, sir, your signature doesn't agree with the one on the driving licence. I won't be able to hire it.
Well, it's probably just because the licence is in a bit of a mess, actually.
I'm ever so sorry, but there's nothing I can do about it.
OK, well...
Sorry.
That's all right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
The white N-registered Mini was spattered with mud, and it was specially distinctive because it still had its original hubcaps, which is unusual for a Mini 11 years old. Three-quarters of an hour later, at Hooley's garage near the centre of Nottingham, their next attempt to hire a car succeeded. A man using the same stolen licence hired this beige Ford Escort, registration number B227KRR. The main street in Cromford, Market Place, was where the Escort was seen next at around 2:45 that afternoon. By this time, there were 3 men in the car. It parked 200 yards away from Lloyd's Bank.
Can I help you?
Yeah, have you got any more of these? I'd like to open a bank account.
Yeah, certainly. There you go. Would you like to open an account now?
No, but I will be needing to. I've just moved into the area.
I see. Well, if you drop your name and particulars down on that form you've got there, bring it back any time.
Great, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Cheers. Well, let's go. Might as well go.
Hello there.
Hi, I've got a few minutes now, actually. Could I open a bank account?
OK, fine. Did you bring the form with you?
Left them in the car. Sorry about that.
It's no problem. There we go. If you'd like to read that and start filling that in. And I'll need your regular signature on there. OK?
I'll wait for you outside.
Thank you so much for your help. It's really very nice.
As 3 o'clock closing time approached, the bank manager and a customer left the bank.
I'm off.
It was time for the security guard to start locking up.
Right, stand back, it's a raid.
Where are the keys? Give me the keys.
OK. Hang on, let me move it. Come on.
Come on, get in there. Get a bloody move on. OK, now you've got to give me some time. Right. I didn't mean to hurt him.
Let me get the first aid box.
Where is it?
It's up there.
Go on. Here's the car. Don't do anything for 5 minutes. If you do anything, I'll come back and kill you.
Well, the man in charge of the investigation is Detective Chief Inspector Jeff Short. It's rather unusual, actually, isn't it, for a tiny bank like this to be robbed, because the risk is so high for such a small return.
It is. If a team are going to go out armed with sawn-off shotguns and use violence, we would expect them to go to some of the larger branches for where there are more pickings.
In this case, they got £7,500.
Yes, that's all.
How badly hurt was the security guard we saw there?
He got a very nasty cut over his eye, needing about 9 stitches. Now, that's healed up now, but it's left a very nasty scar. And, in fact, he's left his job at the bank.
So they might do it again, and in order that our viewers might help to complete the picture of what happened that day, I think it is worth looking at where the gang went after the robbery had happened. The beige escort travelled along the back road to Lee and Holloway, which passes Arkwright's Mills. It took them over the humpbacked bridge which crosses the River Derwent. We know they went under Cromford Railway Bridge because that's where the truncheon they'd taken from the bank was found. At around 3 o'clock, a Saab driver near High Peak Junction remembers a speeding escort overtaking him on a blind bend. The car then travelled through the villages of Holloway and Cryche, crossing the A610 at Bullbridge. From there it went south to Belper, where it was found abandoned in the marketplace. So once they'd abandoned that car, do you know where they went from Belper?
No, we don't. We've no witnesses at all that can actually tell us what happened to them. We would imagine that if they jumped out of a car, this escort car on the marketplace, and then jumped perhaps into another vehicle, that they would have been noticed. And we were looking for witnesses who saw them leave that car and get into another one, or, in fact, where did they go to?
But what we do know about is their movements early on that day of the robbery. The gang made at least 3 failed attempts to hire a car. The first one was at 12:05 at Sandcliffe Garage in Stapleford. Then at 12:15 they tried at another branch of Sandcliffe Garages in nearby Ilkeston. And at 12:30 they were once again turned away, as we know, at New Oakwell Garage, also in Ilkeston. And then finally at 1:15 they succeeded at Hooley's Garage in Nottingham. An hour and a half later, that car turned up near the bank in Cromford. They made so many attempts, and with a very obviously stolen licence, they were in fact rather amateurish, it would seem.
They were. They appear to be very amateurish, but unfortunately they did in fact get away with the money.
What about that white N-registered Mini, which seemed very distinctive? It was mud-spattered, and it had original hubcaps.
Yes, it was N-registered. We think that this car does in fact belong to one of the offenders. They kept it out of sight as best they could near the hire car firm, and we're fairly convinced that it does belong to one of the offenders, and we would like assistance from the public to locate that car, hopefully tie it into a team who are good enough to have done this job.
You think the fact that it had an original hubcap is distinctive, so perhaps we can have a look at that?
Yes, this hubcap on a 10-year-old car, there are very few of the cars that we have actually checked in the area have still got the original hubcaps, and we've checked something in the region of 200 in the Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire area.
Well, Mr. Short, thank you very much indeed. There is a £5,000 reward, too, for leading to the conviction of the robbers. The number to ring here, if you can help, is 01811 8055, or ring the Derbyshire Police direct on Ripley 0773 44883. That's 0773 44883.
Our first case tonight is a robbery that happened back in May, but conceivably you may right now see the proceeds on the open market. It was a daylight raid on a house in a country village, and the gang took away a collection of silver that had been a lifetime's work for its owner. The story starts earlier this year in London. Christie's in South Kensington. Bertram Vince is a regular visitor to the London auction rooms. He's been collecting antique silver for a dozen years. And though he's modest about it, he's something of an expert.
I'm offered 15 only here to start me. 18. Bidding 20. At 20 only. 22.
Bertram's family owns and develops property in East Anglia.
150, 160, 170.
But silver is his first love, and he's a well-known figure in the antique sales rooms.
Your number, sir? 241, thank you.
Bertram lives with his parents in the quiet village of Wearham, near King's Lynn in Norfolk. His family have lived here for 3 generations. It's lunchtime on Tuesday, May the 28th, and there were few people about who witnessed the events that shook the village that early afternoon. It's 5 to 1, and opposite the Vince's house, in the sub-post office, Ken English is locking up. It's half-day closing for Wearham's only shop. As usual, the village seems quite empty. At about 1:10, a neighbour noticed a car he'd never seen before parked right outside the Vince's house. He remembers a green Y-registered Cavalier saloon. It's now early afternoon, and Bertram's parents have gone out. None of Bertram's friends or neighbours remembers ringing him that afternoon. Bertram spent about half an hour working in his study. The VAT inspectors had visited the week before, and he was making sure the records of his silver deals were up to date.
Who is it?
Open up. We're from Customs and Excise.
You were here last week. I'm afraid you'll have to make an appointment. You can't come in now.
We have a statutory right of entry.
No, you haven't. You come back when you've made an appointment. Get off me! Get in there! Come on! Get through it! Help! Help! Get through it! Right, not that way. The alarm's on. Where is it? Get it on! Come on! Oh! Keep quiet! Shut up! Take his hands. Shut up! Give me his arms. Here, he's got
Leading the investigation is Detective Inspector Kevin Coyle. The robbers are very lucky they haven't got a murder charge over them.
Yes, that is correct. Due to the way he was trussed up, gagged, and had the bag over his head, he had great difficulty in breathing.
He nearly suffocated.
Yes, he did.
The green Cavalier that we saw at one point in the film, you're fairly convinced that that was in fact the robber's car, yes?
Yes. Later that afternoon at 3:45, a similar car was seen to go from the direction of the house and turn onto the A134, forcing an oncoming vehicle to brake to avoid it.
Right. Now, what about the men? What sort of description do you have of them?
Yes. The man at the door was about 40 years of age, 6 foot tall, proportionate build. He had dark hair and had a well-trimmed moustache. He was wearing a dark pinstripe suit, was very smart, and had an air of confidence about him.
And what about the heavy that came bursting in through the kitchen door?
Yes. That man was younger, about 30 years of age, slightly heavier, 5'10" tall, had dark black curly hair and a Greek Mediterranean look about him.
Right, now about £100,000 worth of silver was stolen. You've brought some items here that, well, they're not replicas, but they are similar, I gather.
Yes, amongst the property stolen was about 70 snuff boxes, of which this is a similar one. The design on this was similar to some of those what were stolen, although there were other ones which were larger and smaller.
Right, what's that little thing you've got there?
That is a vinaigrette. There was about 40 or 50 of those stolen. These were used by ladies to put perfume in and to sniff.
Right, and this tea set or coffee set?
Yes, the tea coffee set was made by Angel Brothers in 1861 and has a chased design, and the floral chase design.
Which dealers would recognise?
Yes, they would, by the makers and the design.
Tell me about the deed box that you've also brought in. It's in front of the desk here.
Yes. That deed box, or a similar deed box to that, was taken and has not been recovered. We think they took this by mistake, thinking it contained a lot of silver, but all it actually contained was Mr. Vince's books, which had his name and initials on them.
Right. There's a reward, isn't there? Quite a big one.
Yes, there is a reward of £20,000 for the recovery of the property or for the arrest of the people.
Right, Mr. Coyle, thank you. The number to call if you can help, 018118055, 8118055. You can speak in confidence to a detective, or as always, you can ask if you wish to speak to a BBC researcher. Or you can call Norfolk Police direct on Kings Lynn 766 233. That's 0553 for Kings Lynn 766 233. Finally tonight, we want to take you to Birmingham, to Swansea and to Chepstow. When you see the crime, you'll know why police are so anxious to solve it quickly. It's an attack on a family in their own home. They're called the Harrises, and their lives have been shattered by the experience. They were terrorised for an hour by 2 men armed with guns. Now they're selling up the house of their dreams and moving out. Our reconstruction begins 85 miles from Chepstow, where they live, at a market in Birmingham, where the Harrises have a regular Saturday stall. Ron Harris runs a wholesale meat business during the week called Leeway Meats, but at the weekends he and his wife Michelle sell direct to the public at Broomhill Market just north of Birmingham. Each Saturday they take a lot of ready cash. Swansea High Street in South Wales. It's Saturday the 26th of October, and while the Harrises were at their stall in Birmingham, a customer walked into this sports shop.
It's about this crossbow you sold me last week. I'd like to swap it for something a bit more powerful.
That's it, you rang up earlier on.
That's right.
This is a crossbow.
Oh, that's great.
It's the most powerful one we can get.
Great. I've got a bet on with a friend. I beat him in the clay pigeon shooting, and I'm going to beat him again at the crossbow shooting this weekend.
The shop could only lend him this crossbow for the weekend. Meanwhile, they'd order a new one he could keep. The man walked off up Swansea High Street, but he never brought the crossbow back.
Ben, Colin.
1 week later, Saturday the 2nd of November. While Ron and Michelle were at the market, a relative went as usual to their house in Chepstow to feed the dogs.
Yes, come on. Yeah.
She left the house at about 4:30. As usual, the burglar alarm and some house lights were left on. Both dogs ran off wounded into the grounds, and both soon died. The raiders lay in wait in the garage for the Harrises to come home. Ron and Michelle came back from the market at 9:10 with their cousin Shane.
Switch off the alarm.
The Harrises had no cash with them. They'd arranged for the day's takings to be put into the bank.
Leave the bag down there, Shane.
Or close the door on so the dogs don't get out. Hannah! Ben! The dogs aren't here.
Serene! Get on the floor! Everybody down!
Don't hurt us!
We don't want no harm. Get down! Nobody will be hurt. All we want's your money. Put your hands behind your back.
We've seen to the dogs. It's a pity, but that's life. Where's the money?
There's no money here. I've night saved it.
You'd better not have.
Now, where's the money?
There is none.
I'll ask you once again. Where's the money?
Oh, I've told you.
Okay, get her over here. Okay, get up. Keep your head down. We're going to go through every room, room by room. We've got an oven. And if we don't find anything, your wife's going to get hurt.
Don't hurt Ron.
We won't hurt him. We just want the money.
What was that bag you carried in?
A flask and a cardigan.
Now keep your head down. And come on up.
Over the next half hour, Ron Harris was led at gunpoint through every room in the house.
Come on. Come on. Okay, on the bed. Right, where's the jewellery?
It's under the television set.
I like your wife's taste in jewellery.
Is Ron going to be all right?
He'll be all right, as long as he doesn't touch the panic buttons.
Please, don't hurt him.
Look, I didn't want to do this, but they've got a hold on me. Right, get the Tom off her. Don't worry about the crap on him.
Before they went, the robbers gagged and retied the family using tea towels from the kitchen.
Okay, Rick, you sure you're not leaving anything behind you? Yes.
Who's that? It's probably the mother-in-law. It'll ring off in a minute.
The men then made their getaway in the Harris's own Range Rover. Leading the investigation is Detective Chief Superintendent Mark Waters. Let's pick up where the film left off, that Range Rover.
Yes, we need to hear from anyone who saw that Range Rover at 10 p.m. on the Saturday night travelling from the Harris's home to Wycliffe, which is a lay-by about half a mile away, or if they saw any transfer from vehicles at that spot.
Right, the registration number A357WBO. Now, what about the jewellery that was stolen?
Well, there's £15,000 worth of property stolen, but there are some identifiable items of jewellery. One of these is the ram's head bracelet, which is Victorian gold with sapphire eyes. It's certainly outstanding and identifiable. And the second item is a sapphire pin with pearls either side. This is about 1.5 inches long, and again, it's very, very identifiable.
Very beautiful.
It is very nice.
Now, they stole some guns as well, and some ammunition.
They stole 2 shotguns. The unusual gun is this Cogswell and Harrison. It's a pre-war gun, very valuable, not too many of them about.
Right.
And the other gun is the Winchester, which is quite common.
That's this thing here?
Yes, this is the Winchester.
Now, these are much... I mean,
these are quite common, but it's one that... if someone spots, we'd want to know.
Does mean that these men have got themselves something of an armoury. They've got, because I know shells were stolen as well, so they've got these guns, the guns that they brought, and a crossbow.
And the crossbow, yeah.
Right. As for that crossbow, was it the one, the one used to kill the dogs, the same that was taken from the shop in Swansea? Well, as you can see from our micromap, it's a good 70 miles from the Harris's home in Chepstow to Swansea, where a man collected the crossbow. Fairly sure it was the same?
I'm fairly sure it's the same one. It's a very powerful one on the top of the range, a commando, a Barnwell commando. Very powerful weapon. It's capable of shooting the shaft straight through the dogs.
It's extraordinary that these things are legal.
Shouldn't be too many of those about, and we're really interested if anyone has seen something like this about.
Does the shopkeeper remember the man who bought it, or didn't buy it, went off with it?
Yes, he describes him as a man of 5'11", short fair hair, well-spoken, well-dressed. He walked away to the shopping centre wrapped in carrier bags, so someone might have seen him.
You say well-spoken. I gather that the 2 attackers were well-spoken. That was the single most important characteristic.
Yes, well-spoken. After the initial burst into the house, they were very methodical, quite relaxed, no swear words.
No swear words?
No swear words at all.
That is unusual for criminals in a sort of high state of excitement.
It is. It certainly, for this type of crime, it certainly is. And very unusual. And but they were, very methodical, no panic.
There is a reward, I guess.
There is a reward of £6,000 for information leading to the conviction of these men.
Right, of 2 men who, as we were saying, must have something of an armoury. Now, if you can help catch these men, very dangerous men it seems, please ring us, 01811 8055, if you know anything at all. Or you can ring the police direct at Cwmbran. The number there, Cwmbran, 66404. That's 06333, that's the code. 66404 is the number.